Hello, I'm the Resolute Cartographer, and this is the story of what happened to Beckley, West Virginia. We'll start with the history of the real-world Beckley, and then move on to the in-game version covering the layout of the town and then the history of it within the Fallout universe. Real-world Beckley was founded on April 4th, 1838 in what was at the time Fayette County, Virginia, by Alfred Beckley, who named the city for his father, John James Beckley. I find these two Beckleys to be interesting enough people that, though this information is not specific to the city of Beckley itself, I want to share it. John J. Beckley was born in London in 1757 and sold at the age of 11 by his parents into indentured servitude with a mercantile company. He was sent to the colony of Virginia to serve as a scribe for a member of Virginia's elite, a job he held until his employer's death in 1773. John was elected as one of Virginia's first 12 councilmen in 1782 and went on to be elected mayor of Richmond, Virginia 3 times, starting in 1783. Over the years he amassed large amounts of land in western Virginia. In 1789, he became the first clerk of the United States House of Representatives, a post he would hold twice, originally from 1789 to 1797, and again from 1801 to 1807. Why the gap in the years holding the post? John was a Democratic Republican who ran the propaganda machine for his party and eventually functioned as the first American campaign manager working for Thomas Jefferson. These actions led the Federalists to remove him from his post in 1797, but he was reinstalled by Thomas Jefferson in 1801, and further was rewarded with the additional title of Librarian of Congress, the first to hold the job of overseeing the Library of Congress. John J. Beckley held those titles until his death in 1807. John's only son, Alfred Beckley, was born in Washington, D.C. in 1802, moving with the family to Pittsburgh, Virginia at the time of his father's death, and later on to Frankfort, Kentucky in 1814. Alfred attended the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York from 1819 to 1823. A position he was nominated for by both future President William Henry Harrison and current President James Monroe. After graduation, he served as United States Army Lieutenant from 1823 to 1836. He resigned his commission shortly following the end of a legal dispute that resulted in his inheritance of 56,679 acres of his father's land in western Virginia. Before we get into the founding of Beckley in 1838, though, I'll quickly note that he served as a brigadier general in the Virginia militia during the Civil War, but he does not seem to have seen any action in the 6 to 8 months or so that he served as a Confederate before resigning his commission in February of 1862. He surrendered to the Union Army in Beckley on April 3, 1862, specifically surrendering to Union officer and yet another future president, Rutherford B. Hayes. He claimed no loyalty to the Confederacy, but to his home state of Virginia. He served time in 2 POW camps before being released June 18, 1862, returning home later that month, never again to participate in the war. But let's get back to the city of Beckley. When Beckley was granted its charter by the Virginia General Assembly in 1838, it was part of Fayette County, Virginia, so named for the Revolutionary War hero, the Marquis de Lafayette. In one more tiny bit of information not directly tied to Beckley, in the history of Virginia there have been 2 Fayette counties, and neither of them are currently part of Virginia. The first Fayette County, Virginia, now Fayette County, Kentucky, existed from 1780 to 1792 before the separation of Kentucky from Virginia. The second Fayette County, Virginia was one of the 50 counties in western Virginia that seceded from the Confederate state of Virginia. Again though, back to Beckley. In the early years of the city of Beckley, Alfred Beckley himself served many overlapping roles in government for both the city and for Fayette County. On January 23, 1850, Raleigh County, Virginia, so named for Sir Walter Raleigh, was split off from Fayette County, with Beckley becoming the county seat. Following the split from Fayette County, Alfred took up new roles in government, and he eventually became Raleigh County's representative to the West Virginia House of Delegates in 1877. One of Alfred's 6 sons, and the only one not to serve in the Confederacy, John Beckley became the first mayor in 1872. The 1880 census appears to have been the first count of the population of Beckley, measuring the population at 144. Raleigh County has been heavily involved in the coal industry and thus has been no stranger to the various accidents inherent in the mining industry. A plaque in Beckley details losses in various accidents, including in explosions at the Eccles mine, costing 180 lives in 1914 and 19 more in 1926. Along with this, the Royal Mine on New River, opened in 1891, has produced 791 million tons of coal at the cost of 2,121 miners. The population of Beckley grew quickly in the early to mid-20th century, rising 531.9% from 1900 to 1910. 1919 was a bad year for race relations in Raleigh County and the United States in general. With World War I drying up the sources of European immigrant labor for factories in the North, Southern blacks moved north to fill the job vacancies. The new competition for jobs between whites and blacks led to racial resentment forming. As veterans, including blacks, returned from overseas in 1919, tensions boiled over into horrific acts of violence, including one that took place in Raleigh County. 100 years ago to the day as I researched this, on December 27, 1919, Powell Green, a black World War I veteran, was accused of shooting a white movie theater owner. He was dragged by the neck from the back of a car for 2 miles before being hung from a pine sapling. I was shocked at the level of brutality of the crimes in 1919's Red Summer. Moving off that horrible time, though, and back into the coal industry, Beckley is home to the Beckley Exhibition Coal Mine. Opened in 1889 as the Phillips Sprague Mine, and producing its first coal shipment January 4th, 1906, the mine ceased operations in 1953, before being reopened as the Beckley Exhibition Coal Mine in 1962. There even exists at this site a mine superintendent's home, moved to Beckley to be part of the exhibition mine from its original location in Skelton, West Virginia. This site exists within the endgame Beckley as well. The population of Beckley continued to grow through these years, rising to a peak of 20,492 in the 1980 census. Though the population has declined practically every census since, Beckley has worked hard to bring in tourists and to promote their city, including through the construction of the Tamarack, a tourist destination and artisan sales market where West Virginians have brought handcrafted products to market since 1996. The most recent estimated population of Beckley comes from 2018 at 16,183. The city is home to a few university campuses, including West Virginia University's Institute of Technology, the university that became Vault-Tec University in Morgantown in the Fallout universe. But that pretty much eats up most of what I found on real-world Beckley, so let's get into in-game Beckley. In the Fallout universe, Beckley was, before the bombs at least, the largest municipality in southwestern Appalachia. The town was home to 8 houses, a few apartment buildings, a gift shop, a barber shop, another barber shop, an attorney's office, an appliance store, a bookstore, a parking garage, a gun store, a pawn shop, a tattoo parlor, a theater, a liquor store, a bakery, a gas station, a few restaurants. This includes Sal's Grinders, Big Papa Mo's Lip Smackin' Sandwich Shack, a church, and the Beckley Coal Mine exhibit with attached park. Strangely, the town's businesses seem to have been inundated with proposals from the top of the world to run radio ads, with holotapes delivered to at least Sal's Grinders, the Beckley Mine exhibit, and the gas station. I say that this is strange because these 3 tapes are the only 3 of their kind that we find in Appalachia, leading me to wonder why Beckley is the site you find them. But I digress. The main source of the employment with the people in the area was the area's mines, a source of income that was severely threatened by the introduction of increasing automation and the replacement of humans with robots. The part of Appalachia in which Beckley lies was economically depressed before the war, a condition that likely led to Beckley's native daughter, Shannon Rivers, the voice actress for the Mistress of Mystery, to be an advocate for the economically depressed residents of Appalachia. As more and more workers were replaced with equipment, including Hornwright Industrial's auto miners, discontent spread. Discontent turned to rioting eventually, and more so than in any other part of Appalachia, Beckley was a war zone. In Clarksburg, they blockaded the roads, but there's no sign of governmental or industrial response to these actions. In Beckley, the streets were an actual battlefield between striking workers, strike-breaking robots, and the National Guard. Appalachia appears to have been on the cusp of full revolution here, and in the spirit of the revolutions of 1848, barricades went up in the streets. These barricades appear to have actually been the reason for the fight, in part at least, as they prevented the movement of supplies up to the mines above Beckley. Unfortunately for the workers in Beckley, just as with the 1848 revolutions, their initial success was short-lived. It appears that despite the hard-fought fight, the strikers were having to make a run for it as strike-breaking robots fought without fatigue, and the National Guard came in with armored vehicles and hallucinogen gas. In the lead-up to the street fighting, the people of Beckley faced another threat, although this one came in an innocent-appearing package, a sandwich. Sal's Grinders, a sandwich shop opened by a miner's son, was an instant hit with the people of Beckley, offering sandwiches with cranberries. After a time holding a monopoly on the sandwich trade in Beckley, a new sandwich shop opened across the street from Sal's. Big Papa Mo's Lip Smackin' Sandwich Shack, operated by Sal's childhood rival Charlie, began to take over the market with their own cranberry sandwiches. Sal was soon on the verge of losing his business as even he had to admit his sandwich wasn't as good as his rivals. Determined to discover the secret of his foe, Sal had pinpointed the difference in the sandwiches to the cranberries, and thus he stocked the supply truck. He discovered to his horror that the cranberries were being collected in a radioactive quarry in the cranberry bog. Charlie was poisoning the people of Beckley with his sandwiches. Though Sal swore he would get Charlie, we don't have any further record of their interactions. I have heard a theory that the proliferation of these radioactive sandwiches may be the cause of whatever turned the mole miners into what they are. It's an interesting theory, so I thought I'd share it, but I'm going to hold off final judgment on that account until it's in any way confirmed. After the unrest overcame the area, the shop ceased operation. In fact, we know thanks to the recorded observations of employees of the Bishey Company. After the war, Beckley was one of the targets for the responders when they created the fire breathers, in part to contact towns in the ash heap. I will note here, though, that I believe that the town was abandoned by this point, having lost most of its population in the riots, and the remainder to the bombs or to the migration of the aftermath of the bombs. Today, the streets are still a battlefield between the Scorched and the remaining strike-breaking robots. Feral ghouls roam the rooftops. In the small trailer park east of Beckley, mole miners and super mutants battle for supremacy. The air of the city is heavily polluted with soot, likely a result of Hornwright Industrial's efforts with the ash forges, devices originally designed to purify the air until Penelope Hornwright realized that these machines could be used as a form of mining if you consider the pollutants you're removing from the air to be your product. Acting like a comic book villain, her father Daniel Hornwright had entire mines set ablaze to capture useful materials with these ash forges. But machines that were intended to clean the air of the existing pollutants from normal mining activities could not have been expected to pull the vast quantities of newly introduced material out of the air quickly enough to keep it from seeping away from the mine sites. And thus the dangerously dirty air of the ash heap was born. And one final piece of information that we have, a local woman by the name of Welch received a letter announcing her acceptance into Vault 51. A resident of Beckley seems to me to be an odd choice for Vault 51, given its far northern location and the amount of time it would take to travel to the vault on the day of the bombs. But I think that'll do it for now for Beckley. This has been the Untitled Cartographer. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you have any comments or questions, leave them for me and I'll try to get back to you. If you want to get notifications when I release lore videos, follow me on Twitter at GamingWithMaps. I tweet every time I post one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.